come the drums.
We're back. Pardon the Dissent podcast episode, direct-to-podcast episode of Pardon the Dissent. If you're new around here, if this is the first episode you've ever listened to, Pardon the Dissent is a live radio show that's broadcast from right here in the Twin Cities via AM950 Radio KTNF. And one night a week at the radio station, then for some additional content for the listeners who demanded it, beating down the station and studio doors. We created this once-a-week podcast to kind of, just give you a little bit more content and help us get through some of the stories of the week that we can't all cram into the live show hour. So here it is. Today's date, August 8th, the year 2015. And right now, as we're recording this, it's 9:09 in the morning on a Saturday. I've never recorded a podcast this early before, ever, so we'll see how my energy level does for this one here. Producer in studio, Scott Atkinson. He is here. He is not on mic today, though. He's feeling a little bit under the weather, and the microphones are really good, and we're afraid you guys might catch something if he talks into the microphone. So, he won't be talking too much. But he's here, so enjoy his producing skills, I guess. Sponsors of the Pardon the Dissent show. Bell Bonds Doctor, that's our title sponsor here. Natural Pure Drinking Water, Minnehaha Recording Company, Stupid Simple Branding, and Scotty and the Don. Those are our wonderful sponsors that help make this show happen. And if you'd like to check out those sponsors and go to their websites and see what they're all about, please go to pardonthedissent.com and click on the sponsor tab. And you'll find logos for all the sponsors. You can click on those and it'll take you directly to all of their websites, and that would be very helpful to us if you went to go check them out and see what they do. Also, when you're at the Pardon the Dissent website, you'll be able to find links to all the different podcast options, and also if you click around, you'll find archives of all the past Pardon the Dissent shows, both the podcasts and live shows that we turn into podcasts, so that way you can catch up on all the stuff that you missed. Boom, there's that. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, that's right. Also, there's a way you can, if you're not in the Twin Cities area, you can listen to our live show on Monday nights via live streaming via TuneIn Radio, and there is a link to that you can listen to the show directly from the website and call in and do all that stuff too. All right, let's jump into some stories. I guess I would be remiss to not at least acknowledge that a Republican debate happened. I guess it was Thursday night. And I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on it because if you've listened to me any amount of time, you know I don't put a lot of faith in the political system that we have here in this country. To me, it feels like a whole lot of theater. I could be just some kooky conspiracy guy that thinks it's all a bunch of BS. But to me, it's, I don't know. I'm watching it, I'm paying attention to it, know that I'm doing that. But as far as having a lot of faith in the system, it's not there. And even the debates as they were, of course, I watched them. I didn't watch them live. I watched them after the fact. But there was nothing of any real substance, at least in regards to things that I would want to hear, that I'd want to hear perspective. Like they said things that I knew they would say. They said things about immigration, and they have their wacky Republican conservative view of that, and there's lots of of hinting of war. And, strengthening military and things like that, all things that you would expect them to say. But all the things that I wanted them to say, or I wanted to hear, even if it was a BS line of just, conservative wackiness that they had to say about it, they didn't even acknowledge it. Things like the TPP bill, nothing that I heard. Nothing about the environment, nothing about problems with out-of-control law enforcement in this country. All some of the issues that I really want to hear political leaders talk about, of course, was not there at all. It was all like two things. I picked up the most on, like a lot of softball questions that were this was put on by Fox. So they were all given kind of easy questions to their buddy Scott Walker. Clearly, Scott Walker, whoever's in charge of Fox News now, really likes Scott Walker because he was handled with kid gloves that night. There was nothing really challenging for him, and they treated him very nicely. And then, of course, on the other side of that, there was like they were basically ganging up on Donald Trump not a defender of Donald Trump, not a fan of Donald Trump, but it was very clear that the moderators there were going after him quickly and harshly and trying to embarrass him more than he embarrasses himself or whatever. But they clearly had their winners and their losers, or the guys they liked and didn't like in there. I don't know. There's a little bit more about the Donald Trump thing. I do want to talk about that further. We'll probably get to that in the next segment. But as for now, there was one actual thing that was said during the whole debates that I did appreciate, and I was very entertained by it, and it was very insightful to hear. And that was a statement made by Donald Trump in response to a question that was asked of him about a previous interview. And it was asking about campaign donations and donating to politicians. And the question that he was asked, I don't remember the moderator's name, it was one of the guy moderators. And they asked him, when you give money, they do whatever the hell you want them to do. They were quoting him. That was his quote. When you give money, they do whatever the hell you want them to do, right? And then Trump's response to that was like, you better believe it. If I ask them if I need them, you know, most of the people in the stage I've given to, just so you understand, a lot of money. Okay? I'll read that again. If I ask them if I need them, you know, most of the people on the stage I've given to, just so you understand, a lot of money, right? So he was very honest, a very rare thing in politics. He was very honest about the fact that you can buy politicians, right? You can spend your money if you've got it, and you can buy policy changes. You can buy favoritism. And it was a very honest thing that he said. Now, the part of that not only was that surprising that he would say that, you know, maybe not so much for Trump, but surprising that a politician would say that, it was even more surprising, or maybe it wasn't surprising, that all the other conservative Republicans on the stage didn't deny it for a second. Not at all. They didn't even act like it was a bad thing. Like it's so accepted now and so ingrained now that no one even wanted to argue that point, right? Matter of fact, the only thing that, even the complaint that even came out was one or two of the politicians that were on stage said that they didn't get any money. You know, they called it, who was it? It was Governor Kasich of Ohio. He says, I hope you will give to me, right? That's where we're at right now. We it's so commonplace. It's so, whether it politically, socially acceptable now, at least in the conservative side, that they're just blatantly honest with the fact that it's like, yeah, we get bought off all the time, right? That's the way it is. Then, of course, he continued, right? This is, again, Trump quoting Trump. I was a businessman. I give to everybody. When they call, I give. And you know what? When I need something from them, 2 years later, 3 years later, I call them, and they are there for me. And then he added to that, and that's a broken system. Well, yeah, it is. It's totally broken. And scumbags like yourself, Mr. Trump, you are the guys that broke that, right? Because, you know, I rail on not trusting politicians constantly. And, again, to know me is to understand that I have zero faith, right, in that. But I do understand that it's not just the politicians that are at fault here. It's not like they just you know, they created this. Rich people over time understood that, hey, I've got this money. I've got more influence now, and I am going to use that. Right? That's why I'll always refer to that, you know, as to me, capitalism will never work because of the ethic component. Right? We have no ethics anymore. We have no honesty. We have no morality as a balance to our business decisions that happen in the corporate world. And just like anything else, just like, you know, corporations that send their jobs overseas because they know that's a economic advantage for them to get lower labor, they know it's an economic advantage to them to own, manipulate, control, whatever words you want to use, with donations, the peoples that make the policy that create regulations that alter how the profitability of their corporations. Even as far as corporations, if you look at like big oil and corporations that either use the resources that are the result of a lot of wars that we get involved in, even them influencing policy that leads us to war because they know the end game is that eventually we'll have access to more countries with more resources, and we're going to see a profit because of that. And that should be your takeaway from the debates last night. That everybody on that stage, Trump, every single one of them, they obviously acknowledged it, and they had no qualms with it that they are for sale. That's that should be huge to you, and no one's surprised by that. But then we just let it go, and we don't do anything, and we don't react to that, and we don't force or demand any kind of change from this, as Trump even said, this broken system that people like him have created. Right now, those of you on the left side of things, the left leaning people politically, don't think for a minute that it's any better on your side either. Right. The only thing difference is, and this is honestly how I feel, like I said, I do a show that's, I'm admittedly progressive leaning politically, and I'm on a progressive radio station, but I don't claim a party, and this is exactly why. This is the root of the whole thing, is that both sides are bought and paid for. They are, whether you want to admit it or not. You only need to look at your current president right now. You need to look at decisions that he's made. And are decisions that he hasn't made, right? When you look at things like him trying to force this TPP on the bill in the country, or how he opened up additional fracking and oil drilling in the Arctic, right? It's very clear that he is answering to somebody, and somebody with a lot more money than you or probably anybody listening to this podcast. It's very clear that both sides are selling us out, and that. Well, with the exception of maybe Sanders. I'm still on the fence about Bernie Sanders, but he is the only one and only politician in a very long time that I've had any faith in that they may not be on the take. But then again, who knows? Maybe he is. I don't know. We're going to go take our first break, get that knocked out right away. I do have one more story regarding the Republican, the race, and I'll get to that after the break. But thanks for tuning in. This is Pardon the Dissent. We'll be right back.
If I was president, I'd get elected on Friday, assassinated on Saturday, buried on Sunday, they go back to work on Monday. If I was president, if I was president, if I was president. But the radio won't play this. They call it rebel music. How can you refuse it? Children of Moses, tell the children the truth, the truth. It's not all that bling that's diamond. Tell them the
truth. Hello?
Oh man, I'm really in a world of hurt now.
Really? How long have you been there?
I don't really know, but I have to be at work tomorrow.
Oh man, you gotta call the doctor.
Really? But it's so late, and doctors make me nervous. Maybe I should just wait here and see if this gets any better.
No, trust me. The bail bonds doctor is always the best option, and he's available 24/7. Unlike other bail bondsmen, this guy is extremely trustworthy and professional. He can get you out in no time. Give him a call.
One day, even you could find yourself needing the help of a bail bond service. That's why you should know there is a professional, dependable, and affordable option. Bail Bonds Doctor. Before you find yourself in this position, put this number in your phone, 612-332-3030. Available 24/7 at 612-332-3030. Online at bailbondsdoctor.com. The doctor is in when you need to get out.
We want to hear from you, so get connected to Pardon the Dissent. You can find us on Facebook by searching for Pardon the Dissent. Follow us on Twitter at PT Dissent. Email us at pardonthedissent@gmail.com and visit our website, pardonthedissent.com.
ride in their limousine. So wave the flag and take a stand. Stand in line and shake his hand. He says he's your friend.
Pardon the Dissent. Perfect song for talking about politicians. They all want to say they're the common man. They all do. And there's nothing farther from the fact. None of these guys are common. These are billionaires and millionaires who have no clue whatsoever what the common man goes through. Common man gets up early in the morning, comes, does a podcast. That's the common man thing. Whatever. Pardon the Dissent, Joey Vincent here. Scott Atkinson doing the production. And I promised you an additional story related to Donald Trump and this political fiasco going on. We called him an election. I call him a fiasco. It's really what it is. It's just pure theater to me. It's insane the levels that they go to try to convince the majority of this country that everything's okay. Just keep voting. Just keep casting those votes. Eventually, we're going to get it right. Eventually. Maybe not this decade or not the next one, and maybe the planet will be on fire before we ever really get around to doing anything seriously. But until then, just keep voting. Here's this just speaks to me because this story is just pure red meat when it comes to conspiracies. And if you know me, I love me a good conspiracy. I am reading this story from the Fiscal Times. The headline is Donald Trump's Curious Clinton Connection. And I'll read. Conspiracy theorists rejoice. Hey, that's me. A surprising story, broken by the Washington Post on Wednesday afternoon reveals that in May, former President Bill Clinton returned a phone call from Donald Trump, and the two men discussed the billionaire's interest in entering politics. Clinton encouraged the former reality television star to increase his visibility in the Republican Party and told Trump that he was striking a chord with frustrated conservatives and was a rising force on the right. A few weeks later, the real estate mogul descended a glittering escalator in Trump Tower in Manhattan and announced the candidacy that has utterly upended the Republican presidential primary, leading in every major poll, frequently by double-digit margins. Trump has swept aside seasoned politicians, including former and current governors and sitting senators, to dominate the 17-candidate field. All right? There's more to this story. If you would like to read more of it, again, this is from the Fiscal Times. The headline, again, was Donald Trump's Curious Clinton Connection. But that's enough for me there. I'm going to stop right there. Because, look, again, I trust the validity of the whole election system not a bit. I don't trust it a bit. Anytime, if Citizens United was not enough of a indicator to understand that this is not about us. It's not about the majority. It's not about the people. It's about the people with the money, with the influence that are making the decisions. And we're just punching our little buttons, whatever, hitting a thing, because it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because politicians, especially the president, are people that are selected and not elected. So this doesn't surprise me at all. As far as conspiracies go, this is easy one to believe. It makes a lot of sense to me. If you don't understand what's going on, I mean, if there's a lot of confusion within the Republican Party, if they just want to just really kind of splinter it and cast their voters in many different piles, Trump is definitely doing the job. He is, and now he's leading the polls too. So it has so much potential for just sick viewing pleasure. It would be so much better if I knew the fate of the world didn't literally rest in the hands of the American president. I would enjoy it more. But yeah, that's crazy. So definitely read into that, follow that, see how that plays out in this wonderful 3 theatrical performance that these rich millionaires are putting on for us. Enjoy it. All right. We can't do Pardon the Dissent without doing something police related. Today is no exception. So this next story I wanted to share with you falls within that realm. This is again from one of our favorite sources here on Pardon the Dissent. It's the Free Thought Project, freethoughtproject.com, I believe. Yeah, the freethoughtproject.com is the actual web address, and they put out some really, really great stories that you should be following and paying attention to and following. The headline here of this one: police are killing Native Americans at a higher rate than any race, and nobody is talking about it. That is the headline. I will read the story. Americans are up in arms right now over the near epidemic number of deaths of African Americans at the hands of police, and rightfully so. African Americans make up only 13% of the population, yet they are the victims in 26% of all police shootings. That is nearly 3 times the rate of whites. The outrage by the Black Lives Matter movement is founded in statistical evidence which shows that the system inherently and with extreme bias disproportionately targets blacks. That being said, there was one group who is talking about, that no one is talking about, that is targeted more than everyone else. That racial group, the racial group most likely to be killed by law enforcement is Native Americans. While Native Americans only make up 0.8% of the population, they make up 1.9% of all police killings. I'm going to jump a little bit ahead in the story here and read you a couple of the examples of Native Americans that have been killed by law enforcement. Here's the first one. Earlier this month, Native American activist Rexdale W. Henry, 53, was arrested for failure to pay traffic fines. 5 days later, on July 14th, this is past July, Henry would be found dead in a Neshoba County, Minneapolis jail cell. Another one, just days before Henry's tragic death, another Native American woman, in this case, was found dead in her jail cell. She was arrested for an alleged bond violation over a traffic charge. Sarah Lee Circlebear was heard by her cellmate screaming for help prior to being found unresponsive in her cell. That sounds pretty familiar to me. One more here, and before I go deeper into the story. Last December, 30-year-old Alan Locke, it's L-O-C-K-E, was shot and killed by police just one day after attending a protest against, guess what? Police brutality, right? Locke is a Native American man who attended the Native Lives Matter rally that was being held locally, right? Now, I want to continue on the story here, but I'll warn you ahead of time before we go any farther here. Just like every story that we read on Pardon the Dissent, they tend to go worse as we get along here, as we go along. So, of course, this one does as well. The story continues. Native American children are also victims of the state, as a recent report from Truth Out pointed out earlier this month. According to the report in South Dakota, just a neighbor to us here in Minnesota, indigenous children make up 15% of the child population, but comprise more than half the children in foster care. In order to profit off the kidnappings of these children, South Dakota has claimed 100% of its foster children as being special needs for the past 10 years in order to reel in extra money. The child, quote, protective system in South Dakota is incentivized by a $79,000 bonus per specifically Native child. Right? You get what I'm saying, right? That for every child that they rip from their family for whatever reason, whatever justification they have, and before anybody says it, I understand. Yes, there are some situations, many situations, where a family, either because of abuse reasons or inability to properly care for, or unwillingness to properly care for, a child should be removed out of that home and put in a foster care system, because that at that point is the absolute only best case for survival in any kind of life that they can offer, okay? But that's not every case. We know that. We've heard the stories, we know, right? There's stories floating around right now by child care services being called on families because they left their 12 or 13-year-old kid play in the park by themselves. That's an extreme example, but there's other ones similar to that. Okay, so we know that it doesn't always work out that way. But now in this, we have a very special motivator for the state to proactively look for reasons to remove children out of homes, especially the Native American children that are being referred to here, because there's a $79,000 bounty on each Native child as a bonus that the state gets. That's addition to the normal funds that they already get for each child brought into a foster care system, right? There's an additional damn near $80,000. So if you want to really look at this in a realistic perspective, it's basically tax-funded human trafficking now, right? Just like any business that has a potential for bringing in more money, they're going to look for ways to do that, right? So if you've got this incentive program that you're going to make more money by bringing in the Native kids, don't you think that some bean counter somewhere is going to say, hey, you know what? We really need to focus on these Native American families because it's much more profitability in it for us, okay? Now, like the headline said, and nobody is talking about it, police are killing Native Americans at a higher rate than any race, and nobody's talking about it. That's the actual headline. You're wondering, why is this not being talked about in the mainstream media, right? Because I haven't seen it there. I consume tons of media, both independent and mainstream, and I promise you I haven't seen it there. Why is that? Why do you think that is? If you don't know the answer, I'll explain it to you. They do not care. The mainstream media does not care. Well, why don't they care? It's an easy statement to make. Why don't they care, Joey? I'll explain that to you too, okay? The reason why you hear things about Black Lives Matter, and you won't hear things specifically about the same thing at a much harsher rate per capita happening to Native Americans, is because per capita, Native Americans aren't that big of a target market, right? You know, because many years ago, we exterminated like 100 million of them. Not 100 million, but, you know, a lot of Native Americans were killed, right? So now the population has dwindled. There's very small, relative to the rest of the country, very small population of Native Americans. And that's not a big marketing demographic. So it doesn't really benefit the mainstream media to invest a lot of time doing stories or practicing actual real journalism because they can't sell them soap or oil products or whoever else their damn sponsors for that particular segment would be, right? There's enough black people that makes an actual consumer base, so it behooves the mainstream media to actually pretend like they care about the black people being killed. But Native Americans, sorry, there's not enough of you guys left because we killed all of you, right? So we can't sell you guys cars and Tide soap and McDonald's commercials. We can't do that because there's not enough of you. So we're just going to ignore the fact that the genocide of your people is still happening, but just in a legalized, tax-subsidized form. All right, here's my moment of outrage for this episode here. So yeah, please look into that story. Go to freethoughtproject.com. Police are killing Native Americans at a higher rate than any race, and nobody is talking about it is the headline. Expose the story, share the story, and understand that Black Lives Matter, Native American lives matter, even though they're a much smaller consumer base. Pardon the dissent. We'll be right back.
Stand up, man. Stand up for your right, one and all. Get up, stand up, oh, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up, stand up for your right.
Are you a musician or songwriter looking for quality production and recording? Minnehaha Recording Company can help. With over 10 years of experience in recording and production, Minnehaha Recording Company offers recording, mixing, and mastering on any type of project, including full bands, hip-hop artists, and podcast production. For more info, visit minnehaharecording.com or call 612-564-8088.
You can't fool all the people all of the time, but if you fool the right ones, then the rest will fall behind. Tell me who's got control of your mind, your worldview. Is it the news or the movie you taking your girl to? Know what I'm saying? Cause Uncle Sam got a plan. If you examine what they telling us, then you will understand what they planting in the seeds of the next generation. Feeding our children miseducation. No one knows if there's UFOs or any life on Mars, or what they doing when they up in the stars. Because I don't believe a word of what the president said. He filling our head with lies, got us hypnotized when he be speaking in cold words about crime and poverty, drugs, welfare, prisons, guns, and robbery.
Pardon the dissent. Little dead prez to get us going here again. Again, this is a direct-to-podcast episode of Pardon the Dissent. We do these about once a week as kind of an addition to the live show that we do on AM950 here in the Twin Cities. But don't worry, if you're not in the Twin Cities area, you can live stream the show via TuneIn Radio. You just go to TuneIn Radio and you look for the KTNF AM950 channel, and you click play at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time, and there will be our show live. That's also, you can go directly to the Pardon the Dissent website and find that live feed there too. But if you're not able to listen during that time, all the live shows are also released as a podcast shortly after they air, so you will not miss one show. So we appreciate you listening, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to do that. All right, let's get back into some stories here, and it doesn't get any better, guys. Doesn't get any better. This story I am going to share with you next is from another source that I enjoy, is Alternet, alternet.org, another source you guys should be looking into. This story came out a few weeks ago. I didn't have a chance to get it on the live show, but definitely one I wanted to share, at least in part with you. I won't be reading the whole story, but I'll give you the gist of it, and hope you guys seek out the rest on your own. The headline: Rampant Corporatism. SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, for those not keeping track of the abbreviations. SCOTUS justice rule in favor of companies they own stock in 90% of the time. The headline kind of tells you all, but here, let me read some of it. 3 Supreme Court justices didn't recuse themselves from cases in which they held stock in companies interested in the outcomes. Nearly 90% of the time, they sided with these businesses that filed what they call a Friends of the Court brief. Chief Justice John Roberts and Associate Justices Stephen Breyer and Samuel Alito own shares in several publicly traded companies, according to their 2014 fiscal disclosure reports. From July 2014 through June 2015, 7 cases before the Supreme Court featured, again, the Friends of the Court briefs by companies in which the 3 justices were stockholders. These filings allowed parties that will be affected by a ruling, but are not directly involved in the case, to introduce relevant matter not already brought to the court's attention, and this is based on the Supreme Court's actual rules. Justices are not obligated by law to disclose if they have relation to the parties that act as, again, friends, what they're calling them, although they have to sit out if they are involved with one of the named parties. Okay? None of the 3 men recused themselves from the bench in any of those 7 cases. On top of not recusing themselves, the 3 justices sided with their friends 89% of the time, or 8 out of 9 times. Now, these statistics came from analysis done by Fix the Court. Fix the Court is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to increasing transparency and accountability in the Supreme Court. Now, if you look up the story on your own, it's going to go into greater details about some of the actual figures that these justices have as far as their involvement in the corporations that were covered in the cases that they're mentioning here. But again, for essence of time, I'm just going to allow you to find that on your own. But what we know here enough is, just from reading this here, this should you should feel cheated. Okay, and what I mean by that is what is it they always tell you, right? When you're coming up, all you have to do is work hard and pull yourself up by your bootstraps in America, and you can make it, right? Well, that's not exactly true when we look at things like this. This is just one example of one of the things we can point to know that the system is not as balanced as it would appear, right? Because what is the reverse of this? What is the citizen version of this right here? Do you ever get to go to court and maybe you're going to fight a ticket or traffic ticket, speeding ticket, or whatever that? Do you ever get an opportunity to put your friends in the jury pool that you have personal relationships that you know would never rule against you? Do you ever get that opportunity? No. But here we are, SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land that claims that it's built on the rule of law and justice and equality within the justice system. Try not to gag here, right? And these corporations are clearly at an advantage when their shareholders, people that profit from what happens to them, are making decisions about their future. Again, people give me a hard time about where I am as far as the government goes. You're too conspiratorial. You're too, we just got to vote and get the right people into office and things will get better. No, this is not. These are people with lifetime appointments, and they're the end. They're the last checkpoint in the legal highway, right? You work your way up through your state and different levels of federal court, and when it comes down to it, these are the people that make the decisions that stick. And it's clear that there is not a legitimate system in place here. Do I know the solution? No, I don't know how we're going to fix this. Well, I have an idea about things like this, and this can actually be carried over into politics as well, is we really need to change how we view positions within government, right? And I believe the intention was, and how it was started out during the creation of this country, that it needs to be a service, right? That if you act as a judge or a president or a senator, that you're doing a civil service to the country that you're supposed to love and to care about and want to see prosper and be moral and ethical, right? You're supposed to be giving a service, right? So by giving a service, just like when you as an individual volunteer somewhere, you do a sacrifice, right? The reason you volunteer, why it's called volunteering, is because in most cases, you don't make money. It's not a for-profit enterprise. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be a charitable donation of your time, right? Now, I don't expect members of the Supreme Court, presidents, politicians, whatever, to do the work that they do absolutely for free. But I think they need to sacrifice some of their avenues of wealth earning, especially within the time before and immediately after the time of their service, right? Supreme Court justices, they make I don't have the statistic in front of me, I don't have the actual number, but they make a very good salary. They make a very well salary, right? So my thing is, if you really care, if you're really down for the law, if you're really down for the people of your country and you want your country to have a legitimate legal system, I think you should sacrifice. I think all of your, if you have any investments at the time of your service, you should be maybe put into some kind of trust, some kind of independent thing that you don't have a control over, some kind of blind trust. I don't know the actual what's available out there, but I'm assuming you guys understand where I'm going with this. And then after that, your immediate time after service, there should be limitations of what you can invest in and what kind of positions you can take. If you've made a lot of decisions or you've made a lot of policy for a specific genre of corporations, maybe like big oil or telecom industries or something like that, when you retire from your your civil service position, you shouldn't be allowed to immediately go into that. There should be maybe a 10-year limit before you can go into that, so you're not immediately benefiting from some potential decisions that you made in favor for them, or some policy that you've made in them. Again, I'm broad stroking a possible solution of many different solutions that we need to contribute to fix this. But stop pretending. Stop pretending that the legal system is ethical. This is a organized, controlled mafia type organization. And of course, they're not going to say that, and they're going to say a bunch of words that make you think differently. Well, we swear an oath to this thing here, and we do this. It's a bunch of crap, man. There's no way that you would ever be in a similar situation where somebody who clearly has your best intentions in mind is going to be in a position where they can make judgment on anything, especially on the financial end. That's never going to happen. Let's continue with the court. I've got another story here I want to share with you. This is going to be a little bit more direct to the common folk like myself. This story I'm getting from the Daily Kos, whatever however you say it. I don't know. I've never really known how to say it. Daily Kos is what I call it. The headline here is court declares. Hold on, let me get a laugh out. This is one of those. All right. Court declares air fresheners, pro-police stickers, as reasonable suspicion for cops to pull you over. Yep, that's what it said. Court declares air fresheners, pro-police stickers as reasonable suspicions for cops to pull you over. The subheading here is, the ruling upholds the idea that police officers can profile and detain people who aren't actually committing any crimes. I'll read. Kingsville, Texas. The Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that it's suspicious for a vehicle to have air fresheners, rosaries, or pro-police bumper stickers. The ruling stems from a 2011 Texas court case in which a couple was pulled over for having rosaries hanging from the rearview mirror, as well as a few air fresheners and a DARE sticker on the back of their vehicle. They were pulled over based on this stuff, searched, and of course no drugs were found, but they had money. All right? The husband allowed the cops to search the car without a warrant. The cops then arrested them. Why, you ask? Because they can, all right? Under plain suspicion. I'm going to read the actual wording of the ruling here. This is the actual ruling from the Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, Kingsville, Texas. The ruling, we have concerns that classifying pro-law enforcement and anti-drug stickers or certain religious imagery as indicators of criminal activity risk putting drivers in the classic heads I win, tails you lose position. But we need not decide whether these items alone or in combination with one another amount to reasonable suspicion, but because we find the more suspicious evidence to be the array of air fresheners and inconsistencies in the driver's response to the officer's basic questions. I stumbled on that. Let me read that again, too. Where was that? But we need not decide whether these items, or alone or in combination with another, amount to a reasonable suspicion, because we find more suspicious evidence to be the array of air fresheners and inconsistencies in the driver's responses to the officer's basic questions. Wow. We have long recognized that the presence of air fresheners, let alone 4 of them placed throughout an SUV, suggests a desire to mask the odor of contraband. Or, court, maybe it suggests you just want to keep your car smelling like pine trees. You ever think about that? And maybe this citizen who took their own money that they earned to buy a vehicle, then in turn took their own money and bought some air fresheners because they want their damn car smell like pine trees or cherries or new car smell. Right? You you get where this is going, right? You understand this, right? It's little small stories like this that get very little media attention that are the warning lights of growing tyranny, right? Little small things like that, they add up. First it's this here in this particular court, in this particular jurisdiction, whatever. Then that expands, and then it gets larger. And then from there it goes to, well, you had a specific T-shirt on, and that T-shirt suggests to me that you're of this group of people. So ipso facto, that means that you're probably, a bad guy, and we should search you, right? Yeah. It's always little small incremental movements within the legal system, little things that that are slowly being accepted and written into law, right? That happen, and then one day you just wake up, and then your rights are gone, right? It never happens as large moves. You wouldn't want that, because if you do a large move, if you just come out one day and the court system says, you know what, screw it, you don't have a Fourth Amendment anymore. We can just stop you and pull you over anytime. Well, if we did that, the people would lose their minds, because that doesn't make sense, and that's too drastic of a move. So they do little small things like this, incrementally worked in state to state, area to area. Then it becomes normal. My suggestion, as it always is, respectfully, flex your constitutional rights with every single stop. Every time you're stopped by a law enforcement officer, don't, even if you know that you're completely innocent, or if you know that you were speeding or something like that, understand that you still have laws, you still have rights that they're supposed to maintain. It's not their job to make sure that they maintain them. They're going to try to ask you, hey, well, I'm here, why don't you just let me search your car? Why don't you just let me, look around? You don't got nothing, right? If you don't have nothing, you got nothing to worry about. Blah, 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 blah. Don't do that, okay? Film every stop. If you have a cell phone, get an application on your cell phone that you just hit record, and it live streams the stop. It doesn't mean that every single time there's going to be a bad cop. There's plenty of cops that are decent human beings. They're going to go through the actions that they're supposed to do in a very ethical way, and they're going to follow the law and their oath. But it's that rare time. I say rare, and I don't even believe that. But those times that it is a negative encounter, then it's documented, right? A friend of mine who's an avid activist when it comes to police brutality issues. He's got a new rearview mirror installed in his car that has multiple cameras on it. One that are directional. You can point one ahead of the car, one back of the car. It picks up the audio very crisp and very clearly. It's got a camera within the mirror itself, so I think it's eventually like 3 different cameras. I think it's less than $400, which may seem like a lot of money, but I think it's a great investment as far as documenting these types of interactions. So that's just a suggestion. Don't answer. Another thing to do when you're doing a stop, don't answer any questions that you're not required to answer. Understand that when you're stopped by a police officer, they're very limited to what they can ask you, especially for a traffic stop. If they did stop you for a legitimate reason, be it a non-signaling lane change or speeding or whatever, provide your information, provide your name, your ID, and your insurance. And then beyond that, you really don't have to do anything else, right? Where are you going tonight, sir? I'm going north. That's what direction I'm going to. Or you don't have to say that. You can just say, I don't answer questions. I don't answer questions. If you'd like to question me, if you would like to ask me questions, I would like a lawyer present when you do that. All right? You don't have to be a jerk to them. You don't have to be rude or harsh with them. You very matter-of-factly and plainly and respectfully, I don't want to answer questions. Why don't you want to answer my questions? You got a thing against police? Are you one of those constitutional crazy people? Well, yes, officer, I'm one of those people who believes in the Constitution. That thing you swore an oath to protect. You know that, officer? I don't know. Just for academic purposes, I printed off a copy of the Fourth Amendment here, and it's more than what I'm going to read. You should do this as well. Also, go through your your Constitution itself and the amendments attached, and understand what your rights are. Here we're going to talk about the Fourth Amendment because it applies to the story I just read. Fourth Amendment is basically boils down to illegal search and seizure. The wordage here, I got this from Legal Information Institute. The Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution provides the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated and no warrants issued, but upon probable cause, supported by an oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Okay, this ruling is counter to that. Right? Number one, that's not probable cause. Okay, if you're a Catholic and you've got rosaries and you want to hang them above your window or above your rearview mirror, that's your thing, right? It's your car. You should be able to do that. Now, there are those laws of like, well, it interferes with the view of the driver, and so some states have outlawed that stuff, right? But that doesn't give you justification to search the car. Yeah, fine, ticket me for violating your stupid rule about hanging things up on my rearview mirror, but that should not be justification, not probable cause. Same thing with the air fresheners. Well, you got 4 air fresheners in here. Yeah, you must be hiding something, you know? Why? Why must I be hiding something? Because I want 4 air fresheners and I want a more pronounced, good smelling smell in my car. What was the other one? Oh yeah, pro-police bumper stickers. Now see, I'm guilty of that one because in the back of my vehicles I have the little police badge, or not the badge, but it's a black square with a blue line through it, right? And I put that on the back of my car. That's kind of like a little camouflage there. Not that I don't care, because that's a thin blue line is what that represents. And it's basically in support of fallen officers. And believe it or not, when a good officer goes down, dies in the line of service, injured, I do honestly care about that. It's not like I'm not so harsh or anti-cop that I don't appreciate human life being lost. But I put that sticker on my car, so maybe police were a little bit nicer to me. I don't know. Anyway, point is, learn your rights, flex your rights, do so respectfully, but don't roll over for police, don't roll over for law enforcement, and understand that these laws being changed are going to affect you, right? You may not get it now, you may not be a thing now. Oh, I don't have anything on my rearview mirror. Who cares? Well, you're going to care when they change something that does affect you. So be active, be vocal, and share stories like these. Pardon the Dissent. We'll be right back.
All in all, you're just another brick in the wall.
You support local businesses, so it's time you get to know the locally owned natural pure drinking water. They're a family business that's been providing water for the Twin Cities since 1986. Their water is purified using reverse osmosis, effectively removing chemicals such as salt, magnesium, iron, fluoride, lead, and calcium, as well as bacteria. Their water is also treated with ultraviolet light to protect against all airborne bacteria. Natural pure drinking water carries a variety of BPA-free bottles. Their bottles include 5 gallons, 3 gallons, 2 gallons, and 1 gallon. Servicing their machines every 30 days. This means you have plenty of options when you're providing water for your home or office. Using natural, pure drinking water makes excellent coffee, tea, and ice cubes, and you can find their water at many local retailers. They're online at naturalpuredrinkingwater.com, and be sure to check out their Facebook page. Ask for natural, pure drinking water at your local grocery store and select co-ops.
The Rusty Gatenby Review is the entertaining show about entertainment from movies, music, and more. Award-winning TV guy Rusty Gatenby and his review is the podcast with the biggest cast in entertainment, part of the Alive and Social Network. You can get that Minnesota connection to Hollywood and beyond any time of the day or night simply by clicking on the RustyGatenbyReview.com. That's the RustyGatenbyReview.com, part of the Alive and Social Network.
searching for light in the darkness of insanity.
Pardon the Dissent podcast edition of the Pardon the Dissent show. I got one more story here I want to share with you guys. This is what I like to bring back some what I'm calling flashback stories that are stories that have a little bit of age on them that we haven't had a chance to talk about on the show or the podcast, and stories that I think are definitely underreported that deserve more attention than they got. And I will warn you ahead of time going into this story, it's going to be challenging to listen to say the least, because it's a little graphic, and it maybe not be the easiest thing for everyone to listen to. So just have that warning ahead of time. That being said, it's something that affects human life and is related to your country if you're here in America listening. So I think it's important that you do at least understand this. All right, this story, again, this is an older story. This was actually December 17th, 2014, from the Anti-Media, the antimedia.org, another great source. All right, here's the headline. This will give you an idea of what's going to happen here. Classified evidence. U.S. soldiers raped boys in front of their mothers. U.S. soldiers raped boys in front of their mothers. All right. According to a number of global mainstream media sources, the Pentagon is covering up a disturbing video that was never made public with the rest of the recent torture report. Now, that's a topic that we should probably get back into on another show about the specific torture report. For those of you who are fans of the show, I'm assuming you guys are well-informed folks, and you understand what that is. For those who don't remember, a torture report of what kind of torture processes the United States did to our supposed terrorist suspects over the last 10, 12 years was released at the end of 2014. Some of you guys remember the actual quote that Obama said, because the torture report was released on his watch, and his quote was, "We tortured some folks." Yeah, that's an understatement, sir. Totally did. Back to the story. According to various well-respected journalists, including Seymour Hersh. If you're not familiar with Seymour Hersh, he is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, not some kooky conspiracy guy, not somebody that's prone to making up stuff. According to, including Seymour Hersh, the appalling video, which was recorded at Abu Ghraib, the notorious U.S. torture dungeon in Iraq that made headlines roughly a decade ago when the inhuman tactics being used at the prison were exposed. You guys remember that? The prison pictures of supposed terrorist suspects put in inhumane conditions, put on a leash, sexually assaulted, things of that nature. Back to the story. Sadly, it seems that the evidence released years ago was only scratching the surface. While the video has remained under wraps thus far, Hersh says it's only a matter of time before it comes out. Giving a speech at the ACLU last week, after the Senate torture report was initially released, again, this is 2014, Hersh gave some insight into what was on the Pentagon's secret tape. I'm going to read an excerpt from the speech that he gave. Again, this is Seymour Hersh, and I'm quoting here. Debating about it, some of the worst things that happen you don't know about. Videos. These are women there. Some of you may have read that they were passing letters out, communications out to their men. This is at Abu Ghraib. The women were passing messages that said things like, "Please come kill me because of what's happening." And that's basically what happened, is that those women who were arrested with young boys, children, in cases that have been recorded, the boys were sodomized with cameras rolling. Again, this is Seymour Hersh I'm quoting. And the worst above all is the soundtrack of the boys shrieking that your government has. These are in total terror, and it's going to come out. There's an additional part to his quote, if you look this story up, One more time, the headline is Classified Evidence, U.S. Soldiers Raped Boys in Front of Their Mothers. This is the antimedia.org. So you can read the rest of his quote there, but I'm continuing the story a little bit farther. Put into the context with another speech that Hirsch gave earlier this year, it became clear that the women who witnessed these young boys being raped were actually their mothers. At his speech in Chicago this past June, Hirsch was quoted as saying, again, this is a Hirsch quote, "You haven't begun to see evil, horrible things done to children of women prisoners as the cameras run." Other stories at the London Guardian also talked of young Iraqi detainees getting violently raped by U.S. soldiers. 10 years ago, when the initial Abu Ghraib scandal was in the news, the Guardian published a testimony of an Abu Ghraib detainee who allegedly witnessed one of these brutal attacks. The former detainee, his name was Qasim Hilas, Hilas, said in their testimony that, this is a quote from his testimony, "I saw," name redacted of the person he's talking about. He uses the F word here. I'm trying to keep this podcast edited, so it's the F word, but he said that he saw this redacted name screwing a kid. His age would be about 15 to 18 years. The kid was hurting very bad as they covered all the doors with sheets. Then when I heard the screaming, I climbed the door because the top of it wasn't covered, and I saw, again, name blacked out, who was wearing the military uniform, putting his, not the word that he used, but I'm going to use the word penis, in the little kid's ass. I couldn't see the face of the kid because his face wasn't in front of the door, and a female soldier was taking pictures. Back to the actual story part here. Now, over a decade later, the evidence of these events are beginning to surface, but the Department of Defense is still doing their best to keep it all under the radar. That is why now, more than ever, is it important to keep the pressure on and to force the release of evidence, while the torture report is fresh in the minds of the general population. Now, that last part there is very important because, again, this is a story from the end of 2014, and I'm going to go on a limb here and say that the torture report is no longer fresh in the minds of the general population. I'm pretty sure many of you forgot about it because many of you were worried about Cecil the Lion or Inflategate or whatever Kardashian has whatever sexual identity now, whichever one of those things you were. And again, this is only to the people who have those thoughts. I know not all of you do. But you might want to refresh yourself about what has happened in your name, United States, and with your dollars, your tax dollars, in regards to the torture report and how our country is being represented in these in these other countries. And then after you understand that and read that, and seriously, if you have the stomach to do it, sit down and read the torture report, because it's more of this. Some of it's not near as graphic, but still inhuman treatment. Get to know that, understand that. And then from there, when we want to talk about terrorism or suicide bombers or whatever kind of threats, and then some politician tells you they just don't like our freedom. They hate our freedom. That's why they're doing this. That's why we got to go kill them. Really? Is that really why? Is that really why there's terrorism in the world? Doesn't have anything to do with kids being raped. Doesn't have anything to do with children living in fear of their lives every time they hear the sound of a drone flying over because they don't know if they're going to be next to get their home blown up, lose an arm, lose a leg, right? You don't think it's the parents of these kids who are killed and their whole world is emotionally destroyed. And now, out of a sense of vengeance, they join these terrorist groups, terrorist organizations, and want to inflict the same pain that they're feeling on somebody American. The world and its complexities are much larger and much more in depth than the mainstream media will ever allude to. Okay? And you've got a choice to make. You either you remain stupid You remain dumb to what goes on in the world. And you go about living your life, and you play your little fantasy football pools. You watch your little reality television shows, and you keep those blinders on. Or you explore what's really going on. You look for news and information aggregated from different sources other than the mainstream sources that advertise the same companies that are benefiting from these conflicts, like BP Oil or General Electric, you know? It's the world that we're living in. It's the world that we're all responsible for. And we need to make an effort to, if nothing else, to be aware, to understand, right? If at that point you say, well, I don't care. I know what's going on, but I don't care, then okay, so be it. Whatever. But just know that you carry the guilt too. It's not just some politician. It's not just some person within the military following orders. It's you too. Every time you buy something, every time you consume in this country, tax dollars fund what we're talking about. Hate to leave on a sad note, guys, but that's the last story. Don't forget, Pardon the Dissent live every Monday night, 11 p.m. Central Standard Time on AM950 here in the Twin Cities. That's KTNF, AM950. If you want to listen live, go to tuneinradio.com, via the KTNF AM950 station. Listen live. Big thank you again to my sponsors for Pardon the Dissent: Bell Bonds Doctor, Natural Pure Drinking Water, Minnehaha Recording Company, Stupid Simple Branding, and Scotty and the Don. Thank you very much for helping me put the show on. Couldn't do it without you guys. And also please visit us and the sponsors at pardonthedissent.com. All right, guys. Talk to you Monday night live on the live show. Keep seeking the truth.
I hang myself